Now we'll read the Śikṣāṣṭakam, which came from Caitanya Mahāprabhu's samadhi here at Gambhir. You'll find it in the Antya-lila. Of course, you'll find it in this book too, on page number 277. And the Śikṣāṣṭakam is also known in the category of Samadhi Bhashya. Caitanya Mahāprabhu in his Samadhi fixed here at the Gambhira and fully absorbed in the madness of loving service to himself, actually, because he came as the combined form of Shri Radha and Krishna, and he was experiencing the feelings of separation that Srimati Radharani feels from him, and the greatness of her love and so forth. And there, here in the Gambhira, Caitanya Mahaprabhu stayed, there's a lesson to be learned, and that is that it's a way in which it's not our environment that we live in that directs our consciousness. Rather, our consciousness will expand, or when it's expanded, it goes beyond the limitations of our environment. You'd say somebody lives in a big house, an opulent house, but has no love or appreciation for the housemates, then it seems like a small space. But if somebody lives in a very small space, but has love, then it seems expansive. In fact, we find that Vrindavan itself is known to be a small village, but as described in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, all of the spiritual planets put together, which are always expanding, cannot equal the size of Goloka. And that's because of what was described, Shreya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravu Durma Bhumish Chintamani Ghanamai Toyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Kamanam Apivam Shipriyasaki Chiranam Dam Jyoti Paramati Tarasvadyam Apicha, etc. There's a way in which the ever-increasing love that the devotees have there in Vrindavan for Krishna is expansive, even though it's a small place. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu lived in this tiny little room called the Gambhira. Gambhira literally means deep, that he went deeply within, and with the assistance of his most intimate associates, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. And the way he did it was that because they know him intimately, as Lalita and Vishaka, intimate associates in the spiritual world, they would interpret his moods and sing appropriate songs from the books of Jayadev Goswami, from Srimad Bhagavatam, and other literatures which describe the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu would then swim in the ocean of ecstasy of experiencing those loving affairs. And of course we know from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that even though the room is a compartment, had doors and it was locked, Mahaprabhu would somehow or other find a way to get out. And the kinds of bodily transformations that Mahaprabhu exhibited, says Kaviraj Goswami, they're not known in any other scripture. Finding Mahaprabhu outside the Gambhira, sometimes the devotees would see him with his limbs contracted within his body like a tortoise, and at other times they were overextended. And there are other such descriptions of his bodily transformations due to not being able to contain the Mahabhava that was coming from the mood of Srimati Radharani. And this was the internal reason that Caitanya Mahaprabhu came, was to experience this love, and this is what he dedicated himself to during the Antya-lila, the last part of his lila here. Out of all this, we may say, well, what does that mean to us? How do we take that home? How do we bottle it? Because As Radhika Mahaprabhu was saying to me once, you may have some philosophy or a description of the ecstatic moods of Krishna and his devotees, but if you can't access it, then what is the point of such a philosophy? There is no point. But Caitanya Mahāprabhu was in his ecstasy also giving this samadhi bhasha. In his words, he expanded what we know as the Śikṣāṣṭakam. It's a series of teachings that are both practical and also highly philosophical as far as our relationship with Krishna goes. So we can take the instructions of Śikṣāṣṭaka, and when we leave here, it's something we can take with us. And remember, these emanated from Caitanya Mahāprabhu. He spoke them to Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy in his ecstasies here. And they recorded them and assembled them into what we know as the Śikṣāṣṭakam. And you can find that in the very last part of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, very last part of the Antya Lila. And so, therefore, I thought it would be a good idea if we chant it together. Do you agree? Yes. With the prayer that please let us imbibe these teachings and follow them step by step. Give us a nice tune to sing the Śikṣāṣṭakam. Page number 177. Page number 277. We'll do it together. I'm waiting for a good tune. Udarpanamarjanam Bhavamadavagni Nirvapanam Sreya Kairava Chandrika Vitarnam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Bhurivarnanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadhanam Sarvadma Snapanam Param Vichayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishamiha Janina Duragaha Sunadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhakti Rahaiktuki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Titan Ham Vishame Bhavam Budao Kripayata Varpada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galara Shudaraya Varanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Ulakaranichitam Babukada Bhavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugayitam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravrishayitam Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Ashrishava Pararatam Pinashtubam Adarshanam Marmahatam Korotuva Yata Tatava Viratatu Lampato mat prananata susevana para. Mat prananata susevana para. Mat prananata susevana para. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. From the Śikṣāṣṭakam, very practically, Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu begins with Caitanya-Mahāprabhu. And we are in a very personal process, because it's not even a process, it's a relationship. Bhakti is not a process as much as it is developing our faith in Krishna, but more importantly, Krishna developing his faith in us. And there's a way in which Krishna does everything. The purification process takes place by Krishna's mercy. But because the material world is designed to give us an option, that is, we may decide to do the wrong things or to turn away from Krishna. If Krishna didn't give us a very complete facility for being an illusion, then it wouldn't be real free will. Because in order to do the right thing, you have to have an option to do the wrong thing. And the material world, in one of its aspects mentioned in the first personified Vedas, is a complete facility to do all the wrong things. But when one gets information about Krishna and the association of devotees, Bahunam janmanamante gyanamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabhaha, one may come to the realization that the goal of life is Krishna, and then one may relish doing the right thing, even if it's hard because of past conditioning. And if one shows one's intention to do the right thing by, in the beginning, showing up for following the orders of the Guru, by having faith in those orders, to chant 16 rounds minimum, to follow 4 regular principles, we show Krishna our willingness to surrender to him or to accept his mercy. But Krishna is the vidunoti, as mentioned in the verse, Shinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantaksto hi badrani vidunoti suritsatam. He's the one who removes the impurities from the heart, but we're the ones who have to show willingness for him to remove the impurities from the heart. And so in the principle Caitanya Mahāprabhu began with, in the Śikṣāṣṭakam, he said, Chaito darpana marjanam. The chanting process cleanses the heart. However, it's also vital that one adjust one's attitude. And there are various ways in which the Padma Purana says that when we adjust our attitude when we're chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, then it gives Krishna more and more faith in us, that we're eager to be purified. For instance, there's no instruction given by the Guru Parampara that one should criticize Vaishnavas. In fact, just the opposite. And one of the attitudes that Krishna is especially vigilant to see is that devotees are not just hesitant. What's another word? but averse, even more than reluctant, averse to criticizing. What? They abhor the idea of criticizing Vaishnavas because they know that Vaishnavas are dear to Krishna and Krishna doesn't tolerate such things, so they adjust their attitudes and they're careful around Vaishnavas to make sure they don't condescend. They also don't perniciously criticize Vaishnavas to undermine their stature and so forth. And in that, there's a noticeable attitude, because mostly in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, is a criticism fest. That everyone wants to criticize others and find fault. And when one is restrained in that matter, and even if one does give criticism, it's only on the request of the person who's asking for it, and even then one should be careful. So in the teachings of Caitanya Mahāprabhu, he said that in the Śikshāṣṭakam, we should take the chanting and we should purify the heart. And he said also that it avails us to all good fortune. Who would like the white lotus of good fortune to appear in his or her heart or life? And this is something Prabhupada mentions in the story of the Guṇḍīcā-mārjana, and that is that not only does one have to chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, but one also has to be careful to avoid the 10 offenses. And he says that when the heart becomes clean, then it becomes a proper altar on which one can install the deity of Krishna. So you can imagine that our bodies are sacred. They're a tabernacle. And in that tabernacle is a place where the essence, God's essence, is installed, and it's also portable. If one can cleanse one's heart and then install the Lord on the altar of one's heart because it's clean enough and it's properly anointed, then Prabhupada says you can hold a festival and invite everybody and have a prasādam feast, that you've purified the heart and you've installed the Lord within your heart. And in the process of chanting, the white lotus of good fortune opens within one's heart. And punya shravana kirtana means that everyone's looking for some fortune in this world, but it's fickle. Just comes and goes. But the good fortune that we get from association with the holy name is eternal and ever increasing. And one can experience that, say our acharyas, in reference to the verse Yogakshemam Bahamyaham, which begins Ananyaschintayanto mam ye jana paripasite tesham nityabdyuktanam Yogakshemam Bahamyaham. And that is, if you give yourself heart and soul, ananyash, without any other consideration to the chanting of the holy name and to Krishna's service, then Krishna has a personal hand in your life. Yogakshemam Bahami. Bahami means that he'll personally attend to your spiritual needs. Whatever you need to expand your service. He also says the same thing in the verse I quoted yesterday, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami means to give. Buddhi, he gives intelligence. Yena mam upayantite. To those who are engaged in worshiping me. So Caitanya Mahāprabhu indicated all this is available through the chanting of the holy name. And it's also important to note that the holy name is complete and the process of chanting is complete. Especially now, it's a prescribed medicine for Kali Yuga. Karabhajana Muni says, Kalim sabhajayantyarya gunagya sarvagina yatra sankirtane naiva sarvaswarto bilabhyate. Those who know the purpose of Kali Yuga can understand that they can attain everything in Kali Yuga. Actually, they worship Kali Yuga. And 11th Canto also mentions how there are some devas who are aware of what's what in the universe. And they're desirous of taking birth in Kali Yuga because of the dispensation, which is Kalim Sabhajayantyarya Guna Gyasarabhagina. Those who know the truth about Kali Yuga know Yatra Sankirtane Naiva Sarvaswarto Swa-artha. All of one's desires for elevation in Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, purpose of life, are easily fulfilled in Kali Yuga just by chanting the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya indicates in the first verse of the Śikṣāṣṭakam that if one chants Hare Kṛṣṇa, that person will not be devoid of knowledge. Vidya Vidu Jivanam. There's a way in which Sutta Goswami also says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janiyat Yashuvairagyam Jnanam Chayara Haitukam. When you direct your attention to serving Krishna, he said, then you naturally become wise and detached, which are two impossibilities in the material world. You may go to the best college and you may get some vocational skill, but it's highly unlikely that you'll become spiritually refined by doing so. But by the process of Harinam Sankirtan, chanting the holy name, you'll attain qualities that are unattainable in this world through psychological adjustment, through self-help. You could take 1 million self-help courses, and they won't lead to the destination that the chanting of the holy name does, which is to give you genuine detachment from the material world and knowledge of your existential and eternal condition of life. And he says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan, that you can be victorious in life. And Shruti Kirti Prabhu told us when we were in the Govardhan Eco Village that once Prabhupada had been in a place where Prabhupada one day had gotten information about a reversal that had taken place in our acquisition of the Bombay property that he was working so hard for. And he became angry. And Shruti Kirti Prabhu said he got up and he put on his bead bag and he was shaking it hard and he was also chanting very loudly. And then he came over to Shruti Kirti and he said, this is what you do when you become angry. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan, if one understands that there's only victory through becoming Krishna conscious. There's the material world's twists and turns. What's up now will be down later. All victories attained through material endeavor are short-lived. People become famous and then they're infamous the next day. People are rich and then somebody comes and takes everything. Bhagavatam compares this to the honeybee. They work so hard, those bees. You never see anybody work so hard. If you get in their way, they'll just sting you and die because you got in their way of work. And they get a honeycomb developed and then some guy comes along and just takes it. And that's what Bhagavatam says you get from working hard in the material world. You may have a nice honeycomb, but somebody's going to come and cut it down and take it. But whatever one gets from chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa is permanent. It's the greatest wealth. People don't know that. And it's also medicinal. Medicine comes from the root word med, which means to take appropriate measures. And there are no appropriate measures one can take in this world to avoid birth, death, old age, and disease. Even the common cold has been a conundrum in human society since it's been extant. Because if you just tolerate a cold, it'll last for a week, 9 days. 3 days to get it, 3 days to have it, 3 days to get rid of it. And if you take extensive medicine, then it'll take 9 days also. Except for a neti pot. They said that maybe you can shorten it a little bit with neti. But not that much, and it's hard to tell. In fact, you can't tell if anything works in this world, because as soon as you get sick, everyone gives you some medicine. And then you take everything, and then you don't know if it ended by itself, if it ended by one of the medicines, or a combination or permutation of all of them. In this way, we're completely bewildered in this world. So Caitanya Mahāprabhu said there's one medicinal process that is guaranteed. It's the only one that's guaranteed, and it's the chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. You will be victorious through this. You will rise above birth and death, old age, and disease. But what about the progression of bhakti? Adaushada, sadhusangata bhajana kriya, tato narta nivriti set, tato nishta ruchi stata. There's a progression of faith by which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says one can understand one's advancement in devotional service, guideposts, symptoms. How will one come to the highest stages, which, as mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 6 symptoms of pure devotional service. And one of them is something Krishna does, he rarely gives it. And the reason he rarely gives it is because before one comes to prema, one has to come to bhava, and before one comes to bhava, one has to come to asakti. And asakti means you don't want anything else except Krishna. You have no other interest. And very few people come to that point. So what can be done? Well, param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. If one very seriously chants Hare Kṛṣṇa, because Krishna and his name are non-different, Krishna will help such a person to ascend to the higher levels of bhakti. It's not something we can do by intellectualizing, nor is it something one can do by reading many books and professing a higher stage of bhakti is available. One actually has to enter into it oneself. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the last bhajan of the Sharanagati, writes about Param Vijaya Shri Krishna Sankirtan and how one attains complete success just by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And in it, he writes about his sojourn and the process of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. As we know, Krishna and his name are non-different, so the holy name is a person. And Krishna personally assists the devotee who chants Hare Kṛṣṇa. In fact, Rupa Goswami says, Vacham vachakam ityudeti bhavato dvanto vibhavo. Vacham vachakam ityudeti. He talks about, where is it? You can't find it? It's in there somewhere. I know Shraddha put it in there. Shraddha, the last verse in the Sharanagati, about how the holy name takes Bhaktivinoda Thakur by the hand. Did we have it in the songbook? It's there. Just such a big songbook, it's hard to find anything. unless you know it well. So Rupa Goswami says, Vacham and Vachakam, the name and the named are the same. Everyone agree? Only 3 or 4 people said yes. You have to commit. Name and the named are the same. Yes or yes? Then he says, nope, they're different. He said they're different because the holy name is more merciful than Krishna. Even though they're the same, and this is one of the beautiful nuances of the variety within the spiritual world, that Krishna's name is more merciful than Krishna himself, because our condition is, in whichever way you want to try to trace it out, which is impossible, is that we're estranged from Krishna. And we're also considered to be in a substandard position, otherwise known as being fallen. From that position, how does one rectify oneself? Only by Krishna's mercy. And when, as an example, we go for Harinam Sankirtan, people who are minding their own beeswax, walking along, who hear the holy name, become affected by it, because the holy name's a little bit aggressive in the sense that it follows the conditioned soul everywhere in the material world through the Madhyama Adhikaris who go out and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. And then by the holy name's presence, it changes the heart of the devotee. That's also in the Namashtakam, where Rupa Goswami says, Tattva andam, if someone's blind to the truth but they hear the holy name, they can awaken to the concept of bhakti directly. And then he said the holy name is so powerful that it follows us where we go and mercifully takes us back to the spiritual world. And here's a description written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur about that process. Would you like to hear it? Yes. What power does the name of Krishna possess? My heart constantly burns, page 187, in the fire of worldly desires, just like a desert scorched by the rays of the sun. The holy name entering the core of my heart through the holes of my ears showers unparalleled nectar upon my soul. The holy name speaks from within my heart, moves onto the tip of my tongue, and constantly dances on it in the form of transcendental sound. My throat becomes choked up, my body violently shivers, and my feet cannot remain still. Rivers of tears flow from my eyes. Perspiration completely soaks my body. All my skin thrills with rapture. My hairs stand on end, and my complexion turns pale and discolored. My mind grows faint. I begin to experience devastation, and my entire body is shattered in a flood of ecstatic emotions. While causing such an ecstatic disturbance, the holy name showers liquid nectar on my heart and drowns me in the ocean of divine love of Godhead. He does not allow me to understand anything, for he has made me truly mad by having stolen away my mind and all my resources. Such is the behavior of him in whom I have taken shelter. I'm not capable of describing all this. The holy name of Krishna is independent and thus acts on his own sweet will. In whatever way he becomes happy, that is also my way of happiness. The holy name is the bud of the flower of divine love and is the very abode of astonishing mellows. Such is the power he manifests that when his holy name starts to blossom a little further, it then reveals his own divine form and qualities. Thus my heart is abducted and taken directly to Krishna. Blossoming fully, the flower of the holy name takes me to Vraj and reveals to me his own love dalliance. This name gives to me my own eternal spiritual body, keeps me right by his side, and completely destroys everything related to this mortal frame of mine. The name of Krishna is a transcendental touchstone, a mine of all devotional mellows. It is eternally liberated and the embodiment of pure rasa. When all impediments to the pure holy name of the Lord are taken away and destroyed, then my happiness will know its true awakening. This is, among many other things, proof positive that the main process for attaining all elevated stages of our relationship. I don't like that sentencing, and start over. It is proof, it is clear evidence given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our Acharya, that by chanting the holy name one will attain all perfection, which means that one will develop one's direct relationship with Krishna and will attain the perfection of life, including being comported by Krishna to one's appropriate relationship with him in the spiritual world. One needn't speculate or prematurely, same thing as speculate, invent an idea about one's relationship with Krishna. One should, as Caitanya Mahāprabhu is recommending in the Śikshāṣṭakam, have a very intimate relationship with the holy name. With that comes everything necessary. All vitamins are there within the holy name, said one sadhu in Vrindavan once. Nothing else needed. So, Gambhira means deep. Yes, it's a place here where we come to see that Lord Chaitanya was Krishna himself, who is showing the example of how to perform devotional service to Krishna. It took time to chant very deeply, to hear very deeply. And when a group of us met Prabhupada in San Francisco, and the temple president was explaining the different services that we were doing, Prabhupada didn't comment on the services, but he said to us that you must take time to read my books. And it was he said it in such a stern way that it entered into our hearts. And this is incumbent upon anyone who wants to advance in bhakti to make sure that he or she has their own Gambhira. You have to find a Gambhira or make arrangements to very deeply chant the holy name without distraction, and to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Prabhupada's books. And then one follows in the footsteps of Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, who came here to Gambhira and showed by his example how we should execute devotional service. Of course, he counterbalanced that by showing that we should also distribute Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone with abandon. And the two things go well together, as Prabhupada showed from his personal example. Om Tat Sat. Now, if there are some other points that devotees like to make or reflections, and checking in with our organizers about insider information about when we should leave here to go to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. Now, in 5 minutes. Okay. Comments or questions that will expand the conversation? Yes. May the mics please flow.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. In this translation of the verses we just recited, number 5, such is the behavior of him in whom I have taken shelter. I am not capable of describing all this. The holy name of Krishna is independent and thus acts on his own sweet will. In whatever way he becomes happy, that is also my way of happiness. Are you able to explain a little bit about what the independence of the holy name means in this regard?
As Bhagavatam describes Krishna, Abhigna Asurat. He's fully cognizant of everything and everyone. Krishna's the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaham Samatitani, etc. And Swarat means he's completely independent. And Nayamatma Pravachanena Labhyona Medhayana Bahuna Shutena Yami Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas Tashaisha Esha Vinute Tanum Swam. The Puranas say that Krishna is not mechanical. He has his own. It's his own choice who he develops a deeper relationship with, and therefore we can understand that he's independent in that. As an example, in the commentary to the 6th canto, in the matter of Ajamil, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that when one chants Hare Kṛṣṇa, the fruits of chanting are up to Krishna. They may come soon or they may come later. He may withhold them for his own reasons, his own benevolent reasons in relationship to a particular devotee. And in fact, in the light of the Bhagavat, Prabhupada in his commentary mentions that our human life is a chaturmasya-like existence. Chaturmasya are the 4 months during the rainy season when mendicants would generally stay in one place and just hear and chant or do austerities, and then they'd go out afterwards. So he said our human life is like that we have a short amount of time. And he said we will not realize the full extent, the result of our practice of devotional service until we leave this chaturmasya-like existence, when we leave our bodies. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur similarly says, some people, for some devotees, independently, he asks them to wait to get the full results of their chanting. For instance, Narada Muni, when he was a little boy, he had been benedicted by his service to some saintly devotees who came to his home. And then afterwards, when he went out on his own, after his mother died, and he had a fully transcendental experience, then he lost that experience within a moment. And then he tried to get it back by doing some mechanical process. And then Krishna spoke to him in an unembodied voice at that point and said, "Bad yogi." He said, "You're not able to see me through some mechanical process." He said, "Now you know what to expect, so you'll have to wait." And it's not that it was discouraging, it was encouraging to Narada. And Krishna knows just how to, in his relationship with every person, how to make that relationship deeper and to encourage the devotee to go onward in the process of devotional service. So it's not a Coke machine or whatever, a water machine like they have in Delhi airport. You put in your rupees and you get back, what's that water called? Bisleri, ooh, God. Kinley is even worse. Aquafina, yeah. So you get your Aquafina out. It's not like you put your money in and it comes out. It's like, where's my bottle? I'm going to complain. It's a relationship with Krishna. He's independent. Yes? What? Yes.
Maharaj, we hear in the Caitanya Charitamrita and those who speak about it that Mahaprabhu spent his time in the Gambhira relishing especially verses with his associates, and we're obviously not at that stage of where he was, but sometimes we also chant verses like the nectarian verses at ISV. I just wanted to understand what's the mood in which we can relish at our level the verses about Krishna.
When we chant, for instance, notable prayers, which we do, we start to imbibe the mood of the person who said them in the beginning. For instance, when we chant Queen Kunti's prayers, it makes us very thoughtful. And just like chanting bhajans, there's a window to the spiritual world when we feel the mood of the bhajan. And similarly, when we recite notable prayers, we also begin to imbibe the similar type of feeling from those prayers. So it's a highly recommended process to recite notable prayers of the previous acharyas. And we can do so thinking that we're honoring them by chanting those prayers. And we can try to enter into them by thinking about them, discussing them, and so forth. Okay. Uvarimashta. Ho gaya. Now we're going to go to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. Krishna willing. Shraddha Devi Dasi will tell us how we're going to do it. Because the hardest part of parikrama is troop movement.
Thank you. Yeah, Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees, how was it at Gambhir?
Haribol.
Haribol. So now we are headed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's place. And Chuku's Venum Prabhu. Where are you, Prabhu? Stand up, yeah. He knows the way, and you are with? Who else is helping you? Vaishnav Toshani Prabhu. Okay, so Chuku's Venum Prabhu and Vaishnav Toshani Prabhu know the way to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's place. It's straight out, not very far away, but just follow them so that you can reach the destination. Thank you so much.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, if you so desire, please instill in us a deep desire to chant the Maha Mantra without distraction. Thank you for considering our request. What? He wanted to do a little fundraiser? I think we can go. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know how long his comments are. You know what I mean? Vanchakalpadurvasya kripasindhaveva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnaviniki jai go premanande.